Hi, my name is James McNab. I'm the General Manager at Totem, and this is a conversation that I'd like to have with you. And this is really a reflection on many of the aspects of my career in the past before I got to Totem and why I've really changed from being so focused on digital strategy and design to content. This conversation is about 5 things that don't matter anymore. Okay, the first thing, web design. And by this I'm talking about the obsessive focus on the design of interfaces, usability, information architecture, and user flow. All of these things are important and they're absolutely critical, but the reality is we're not reinventing how people use computers anymore. What we do have is a good arsenal of patterns, of design patterns that show how people typically move through websites, and their expectations are pretty consistent. So what does matter? Well, the content. It's the content that carries the value of your interface. Whatever you do, don't prioritize the interface and then treat the content that it delivers as an afterthought. That's the reason they're there and engaging with you, and that's where your focus should be. Okay, the second thing, content management systems. Okay, so content management systems have their place in the back office, but the reality is it's very rare that you're going to produce a certain body of content that's going to have a lifespan that's long enough to make it worthwhile keeping and protecting. Content changes, content ages, the content you need to have photographed or the written up or the stories you want to tell are meaningful in that moment in time that they're being used. And the reality is very rarely are they going to be valuable again in the future. So where should your attention be? Focus on the ability to dynamically create the content you need when you need it. Don't try to keep every product you've ever produced. The metaphor should be a storage locker, not the National Archives. All right, big strategy. And this is a bit of a painful one for me since I spent so much of my career developing large strategies around customer experience. The reality is that these programs are huge, expensive, they take time to develop, and by the time they get to market, it's very common that something in the business has changed or something in the competitive landscape has changed, and they don't work anymore. So what should you do instead? Well, you should focus on building an adaptive and responsive strategy that's more like a framework for decision making in the moment. Something that keeps you focused on your goals, but doesn't necessarily get you all caught up in trying to follow a prescriptive set of steps that may not work when you actually get to market. All right, number 4, campaign thinking. This idea that we can run an entire year over a series of 4 to 6 week cycle, it's pretty disconnected from the reality of the modern day environment. We are always on. Most of this is based around old school TV advertising and the cycles on which it ran. The reality is people have ongoing needs from your brand or your business. They're going to want to engage with you on their terms. So this idea that things should be campaign driven is genuinely a mistake. So what should you focus on instead? Try to define a series of accomplishments you want to achieve over time, and then organize everything you do around getting there. That's going to move an organization faster and more efficiently than it is to try to focus on getting something done in a particular series of 3 to 6 weeks. Now, that said, you're going to run a tactic and you're going to try to measure it, and you do have to bookend some of that, and I understand that some channels do work that way, and advertising often works that way. But to think of it as something discrete that's the backbone of your marketing plan, that needs to be rethought. All right, number 5, probably my favorite, digital first thinking. Okay, not necessarily just digital first, but channel first thinking. Any kind of thinking that starts with, what should we be doing on television? What should we be doing on print? What should we be doing on the web? These are mistakes, and I understand how we get there. Most of these channels are associated with departments, or there's departments that use them fairly heavily inside of an organization. But this is really a reaction. Digital first thinking is really a reaction to businesses that were so deeply rooted in one medium, and I'm talking about newspapers here, that it dominated everything they thought about. And so digital first is swinging the pendulum in the other direction. However, as most organizations aren't so deeply rooted in one media, assuming that one channel should dominate the rest is really a mistake. So what should you do instead? Well, move to customer first thinking. What does your customer need? What's the experience you want them to have? How do you want to influence how they perceive you? And this should tie back to everything you do. What you do across channels, what you do in content, how you motivate your organization to activate different programs you have in place. This really is the fundamental, and if you organize your organization around your customer, you're going to end up with a better result at the end of the day. Did any of this ring a bell? Did this rub you the wrong way? If it did, let us know. We'd be happy to help you challenge some of the assumptions in your own business.